I definitely skateboarded before I ever snowboarded. I probably started skateboarding when I was 6 years old, I believe. My older brother actually, when I was young, was my mentor for skateboarding. But as I got older and got into it and progressed, some of the prominent pros at the time, obviously Tony Hawk and some of the vert skaters, because I was a vert skater at the time mainly. One of my first sponsors was a shop sponsor, Marin Surf and Skate, and that kind of gave me a stepping stone to enter some contests and get some visibility. I started getting magazines and traveling a little more, and got picked up by H Street later on. Yeah, I was in a couple different H Street videos. The first one I was not in, I think it was Shackle Me Not was the name of it, but that was the one that got so much notoriety, and then I got on H Street and I was in the following Hocus Pocus video the next year, I believe, and had a good part in that and stuff. Mac Dog had actually got me on. I was friends with Mac Dog, and he was making videos for H Street, and this was before the videos were a big craze. The Bones Brigade videos were like the only thing, so H Street came out with a great video, inspired by Mac Dog, and he actually got me on the team and got me introduced to them.
Well, because of Sick Boys. Mike Ternansky saw that. He was pretty hyped on it. I think the main thing he liked about it was the Super 8 filming. He didn't know much about film, and he wanted to have that look in Hocus Pocus. So that was the main reason why I got hired for that gig, and worked out pretty well.
It's all history there, because I started shooting with Mac Dog with snowboarding too, and kind of gave him a career, and in return he's helped my career too. So it's been pretty cool. The reason I turned pro is I had just competed the year prior in 3 different events to get to the nationals, and I went there, qualified in the street and for the vert contest as well, which was my forte, a vert skater, and I ended up winning the street contest the day before the vert contest, and everyone's like, "You're going to turn pro," and I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Dude, you won the biggest event, and the amateur event, you're going to get a board." I'm like, "Really?" And I was like, "I don't know about that." And then I did horrible in the vert contest because I was just stoked on that I won the street thing, and sure enough I did turn pro, and for a few years had my own board with H Street and Life Skateboards at the time, and I did pretty well. I wish I would have hung on to that career a little more now that I look back and juggled both, kind of like the Shaun White does. I feel he's kind of a new school of me. He's really powerful on vert and doing well in competitions and killing in snowboarding obviously, so he's someone who's kind of taken it a step farther than what I did, I feel like.
About the same time I met him snowboarding through Roach, he was already coming up in NorCal skate scene, and man, that guy was so talented. And when you see someone on a vert ramp that size do a 6-foot ollie, like over your head, frontside ollies, it's like, wow, and yeah, I knew if he got into snowboarding, he would help change things, you know what I mean? So he was a much better skater than me. Like he was a pro. He had a pro model, deservedly, not because he was like snowboarder. It wasn't like a token type thing. He was a legit gnarly pro vert skater.
I guess it was around a 7 to 8 year career that I had in skateboarding before I actually stepped away and focused more on snowboarding in my early 20s, I would say. And not that I let my skating go, but definitely the competitive side I did, and I still skateboarded for fun, but I really focused on the snow and made that my, my main profession, I could say. So I think I started snowboarding when I was 18, and it was kind of a cross between my skiing and my skateboarding. It was like, wow, snowboarding looks so cool to me, and so I got into it way later than actually skating, for sure.
Yeah. When I first met him, he was already a professional skateboarder. I think him and AV were both professional, and they were just getting into snowboarding. And once I saw them skating, I was like, they were already ripping skaters, and it was nice to be able to, if we went somewhere together, I could watch them skate and try to learn from them. And it was nice not to be the only one around having that, and they were pushing snowboarding like they were skateboarding.
When I started snowboarding, I saw people like Chris and a few other, pro snowboarders on the hill when I was actually learning, I guess, and this was probably in the, late 80s, and I saw people like Chris just ripping down the hill, and I was like, wow, these guys are really good, and just kind of motivated me to ride more and aspire to, be that.
Noah has a lot more to do with things than maybe people know, or maybe even he knows, Noah with Mac Dog for sure helped turn that tide, you know what I mean? Like, absolutely, like 100%.
You know, I think in Hocus Pocus there was a couple snowboarding shots of Noah, and you know, Dogger just was totally against the whole snowboard scene and stuff.
Well, snowboarding was pretty hurting, I thought, and it actually was pretty harsh. Like early snowboarding, guys didn't really understand anything about style at all. There was a few people that did, like Terry Kidwell and Craig Kelly, and they were like doing it right, but for the most part, your average people that you would see, they just suck, man. I can't even describe how lame it looked. I was over it. We went up there and there's all these dudes in hard boots and tights, basically, you know, like day glow stuff, and it just looked so stupid. Like, and I was filming skating, and like Danny Wayne, Hensley, and Noah and those guys, and all the CBS guys in San Francisco. Like, the contrast between those snowboarder dudes that I saw in skating, I just thought it was stupid, you know, like, and so anyways, Noah wanted that shot, so we went and got it, but then I started snowboarding with him, and I enjoyed it a lot, and then him and Roach were going off doing stuff, and they made snowboarding look good, so that's why I started shooting it.
You know, when we were riding together, like every day it was something new. You know, every single day we were changing, you know, what was going to happen with snowboarding. And I remember those 2 years or whatever was going on, we were doing that snowboarding was going into a new direction, and it was nice to be a part of that. And I think Noah was the one of the guys that was in the forefront of that. And there would be no stopping it at that point.
I don't know what it was with those two, but it was obvious. I still feel like that whole look still came from Terry Kidwell and like Palmer, and then Craig Kelly, and then Roach was always there too in Salaz, but I don't even see it today, really, hardly. You just don't see it. It was just like, I don't know why those dudes got it and like a lot of people didn't, but it was really cool looking, you know. They like rode together. That was part of why they are the way they are, you know.
Noah had more like a technicality to him, you know, and did more, you know, spin-oriented tricks where, you know, Chris would kick out a big grasser and Noah would, you know, do like a backside 7, but both sick, equally impressive tricks, but just, you could tell that one was kind of a technician, the other one was kind of like laid back and cruising, but also on point.
No, if anything, he was more proficient. He was the better rider. I was trying to aspire to, you know, be calmer like he is. He's really calm on his board. I think I had that arm movement that's so famous. God, I don't know where that came from, but yeah, I lost that, and part of that can contribute to Roach. You know, a calm style. He's always had that, and very fluid. And I think I developed my style more over the years, whereas he actually just had style, his hands down. You know. People might have said I have, but I think that I worked on it a little more. I worked for it. You know, they either say you have style or you don't. You can work at it a little bit and get some style if you ride enough. So,
I don't think our styles were mimicking each other at all. I think if you look at it, we don't ride alike at all, but we did a lot of the same tricks and stuff because we because we fucking hung out every day, and it was like that was sick. I want to try it.
He was one of the first guys that I was super hyped on in snowboarding. Like the first video I ever saw was Critical Condition, and he had like a really sick part in that video. Like it wasn't like a part, but he was like in the video, and he was, I felt, one of the guys that just kind of had like a sick style. Like Chris Roach was in the video too, but he didn't have much footage in it because he got hurt, and I was just stoked on Salasnek's style. I mean, I had long blonde hair and a goatee, and like I looked just like him, besides maybe a dip in the mouth. Like I totally tried to model myself after him for so long.
well, I think, you know, with Mac Dog growing up, I had a relationship with him. We got along really well, so I'd say he was the easiest, best person to film with. And then with snowboarding, I met Fall Line Films, and they were pretty cool people, I could have to say. They were my first real snowboard film company that I worked with legitimate. Got some recognition one year on that. I had this offer from H Street to make a snowboard, and I said, hey, let's do it. And I put my name on a board, and unfortunately one of the owners had got in an accident and passed away. And the other owner at H Street did not want anything to do with snowboarding, and I was kind of left in limbo, and ended up going to a trade show with a resume and going to Tom Sims in the booth, and they had new backers and kind of worked out a deal with them. It was kind of good timing type thing, but yeah, it was unfortunate because I think H Street could have done something in snowboarding had Mike Ternansky lived. But anyway, it was sad and it was unfortunate, but you know, I did work out with Sims and, you know, ride for them for 7 or 8 years.
I mean, Noah was just a really easygoing, likable guy, and you couldn't help but you know, like the guy. He was so low key that when you did see him in a half pipe competition, you're almost like, gosh, it almost seems like it's a different guy, because he would, you know, he was so technically advanced on his tricks. The other snowboarders could appreciate what Noah was doing, and quite often the judges didn't.
I think what set Noah and I apart was that, you know, for me, I didn't really give. I mean, I gave a shit. I did contests and stuff, but I never did well in them. And Noah going there, and his head was always together. He always did well in contests. I mean, he could go to any contest and fuck, he was gonna be top 3 no matter what. I'd go there, and even if we were the same rider and I should be up there, I'd get fucking 10th and be like, yeah, I got 10th. And he wasn't stoked, man. He wanted to win everything. And that's cool, man. He, you know, he had a lot of heart and passion for it.
I feel like Noah took it farther. I think Noah was technically more capable. Chris really, you know, he was a little bit of an underachiever, where Noah wasn't. He wanted it all the way. And yeah, I think he made more money.
Just after riding for Sims for the first year and getting the response we had and having a pro model and coming into money being young and just being so adamant about my career in snowboarding at the time, I focused on that. I bought a house in Tahoe and really went after it. I made that decision to, you know, my professional career to be a snowboarder. You know, financially it worked out at the time, and so I stuck with it.
The Noah Salasnek board, when we first came out with it, was one of the most progressive snowboards we ever made, and it was so cool. One of the ones had a skateboard graphic on the bottom. You know, it just showed so many of the Sims team riders had solid skateboarding backgrounds, and I had a skateboarding background before I got into snowboarding, and so that connection was very much a part of what Sims was.
Well, my first graphic with Sims, I had always wanted to do like a skateboard base, you know, and that's what we ended up doing. The top sheet was kind of totally unrelated. It had kind of like a hobo with a dog. It kind of looked like me, I suppose, with a goatee and stuff. But nonetheless, the base had the independent-looking trucks and wheels and stuff. So that was my idea then, and that board did pretty well, actually. And it's funny because Hetzel came out with one, even though he heard that I had done that, and he did it, I think, the same year, even though he knew that I had done that, which I don't know why he would do that, but whatever. I don't think he sold half as many boards I did that year, so what do I care? I'm just playing. I'm friends with Hetzel, but that was pretty funny. And I think Palmer was the one who told him he should do it, because Palmer was pissed that I got on Sims. I'm getting a board right away. He's ridden for him for years. Now he's getting his first board, you know. So he's like, Hetz, make your skateboard base. That's cool. Noah, do it too. And so he thought he'd get the last laugh, but my board did well that year, so that was cool.
It's funny, I forget what standard movie it is with Salasnek. There's like a part where he's riding an old Sims board, like I don't know what it was, like Sims half pipe or something, where he's like kind of wearing like the color blocked pants and stuff. It was also the year that he came out with his skateboard pro model, and so half the shots he was the little character that was on his boards, and then the other shots he was kind of like the late 80s snowboarder guy, but it was like his season was mixed. I don't know how that really went down, but you could definitely see like a distinct style change right there, and then I think snowboarding kind of followed Noah with it, you know.
I think working with standard and having that TB2 part come out was one of my better parts, and definitely gave me a good push. And motivated me to film with them further, you know, for TB3 and 4. But yeah, I think it was one of my better parts, and I think it was, again, good timing. The time it came out was kind of early back in the day, and yeah, I'm proud of that part, absolutely.
When we picked the crew for TB2, it was basically just a combination of my brother and I and Mac Dog sitting down and saying, who's the best 10 or 12 guys we want to shoot? Noah was my bro from Tahoe. We knew he ripped and was potentially one of the best guys in the world. And then there was the whole big mountain guys that I was more friends with. So it was a combination of Mac Dog's freestyle background and him picking those guys and having the connections, and then me being connected with my brother in the big mountain scene and just kind of, you know, shuffling the deck and going, here's the hand, we want to play right here. And some of it came to do with fall line too. Some of the guys had worked with fall line for a few years and were getting a little fed up with it and wanted to go in a new direction. So the timing was good for us. for Noah and Terrier. Those guys just wanted to try something new. So when they heard that Mac Dog and I wanted to go out on our own, they were all pretty stoked because I think they realized the vision.
As a filmmaker back then, I wasn't interested in filming anyone snowboarding until they learned a bunch of new stuff every year. So what did that mean for us? Well, at the beginning of the year, we're riding powder every day. You know, where everyone's learning their stuff. I didn't even start filming until spring. So I had met up with the Hatchets and Squaw and just riding with them and stuff. And I know Mike was pretty frustrated about a situation over at Fall Line, and he was hitting me up. I was making these pretty low budget films, and he's like, why don't you get a 16mm camera and let's do this, dude. And I was like, thought about it, and I wanted to move up into 16 anyways. So I was just shooting Super 8 and High 8 and stuff. And so, yeah, I got a camera, like a 1960 Airflex off this super old guy. I used it maybe once. It was like brand new. And then got out there and we started doing our thing. We made standard films, and I came up with the name when I was taking a leak at some gas station. There's a standard urinal there, and I'm like, sick, standard. So that was how I came up with that name, and it was a lot of fun, man. It was a good time in snowboarding back then, you know, a lot of progression, and it was super easy back then, you know, because nothing much had been done, so it was good stuff.
The only difference is Standard's going to meet at 5 a.m. at the gas station, and Artie and them might meet you at 9:15. So you get to sleep in a little more when you're working on Fall Line, maybe. But no, other than that, they're both professional on site, and they're both motivated, dedicated, good filmers. You know you're going to get the shot. That's why I like filming with them. If I'm going to go either risk my life or hike some peak and do some line, I want to guarantee it gets in the can, and you can get that working with people like that, professionals.
I guess what Mac Dog and I and my brother wanted to prove is we wanted to make the best snowboard video that had ever been made. And I don't want to say that sounding arrogantly or, you know, cocky in any way, but we just thought that the movies that were out there were good, but they weren't great. We wanted to focus on just snowboarding itself and the characters, the riders themselves, and not so much of the storytelling and narration. We were over the Fall Line narration. We went here and we did this and we did that. And again, not to diss on Jerry and Artie, because Fall Line's a great film company, and the contribution they made in snowboarding was amazing. But yeah, we wanted to get away from that and more just like, this is dope snowboarding. Here's some good music. Here's Noah Salasnek. Watch him rip.
I think there was a cool shot of Granite Chief Peak where I do like 2 turns and pop like a 30, 40-foot cliff, maybe max, and land it pretty good and do a couple turns out. And I was on like a race board that no one probably knows, like a 170. But it was pretty cool because I was able to stomp the landing. But what they don't know, or maybe it's in the slam section, I went back up and tried it again and ended up tumbling and just tomahawking at like 30 miles an hour. And one of my worst beat downs. I think it did make the slam section actually, but that was, when I stomped, it was pretty rewarding for sure. So that stands out in my mind.
Noah's was the first style that really kind of drew me in, and that's when it was really like, oh, you know, I get it now. Because before it was, you know, Damien and hard boots, like going down the fingers at Tahoe or getting dropped off in a helicopter. And to me as a kid, it was something that was just what those guys did. It was nothing I could ever imagine doing, you know. And then when these other guys went to that level, it was I could grasp that and it made sense. And then all of a sudden it was me and my buddies, like, we're doing what they're doing, and you know, we could do this one day.
Maybe the year before, like somebody did like a late backside 180, and then Noah's part came out the year later and had like late switch backside 3s and all this crazy stuff. So I was all about that, and doing butters, like butters was just like the only thing for a while that mattered, like just butter from the top of the lift to the bottom, you know, and he was super good at it. And it was sick because he would do it like, I remember he had like shots where he'd like butter up to cornices and spin off of them and all kinds of just stuff like that. So I was just like go teed up and buttering it up.
I don't know who started the whole little butter thing. I know we got kind of into like the nose pressing and tail pressing and trying blunt slides or whatever they're called. I mean, everyone's got a different name for them. But yeah, there was a little era that everyone went through. They were trying to, you know, press the nose and spin out of this and that, and went through a little phase. But it's pretty cool. I've been known to sit back on my tail and snap a 180 out of it now and again, so it's still pretty fun to dabble in a little nose press or butters or whatever.
And that's what's cool about filming back TB2, 3, 4. There wasn't like today. It's almost okay. We're going to go to this knoll and build this gap that's been filmed 20 gazillion times. Or we're going to hit this log, or I'm going to backlip this rail, or I'm going to do a front side through this kink, or I'm going to do a switchback 1260, whatever. You're going to do this trick, and it's a setup shot. You know, you're sitting sideways, you point it, you do your trick, you land just far enough for the shot, and you're done. We just go out and look up at something and go, let's just ride it. Let's just film that. Watch Noah's part from TB4. His opening shot, you can just see the spontaneous riding in that shot. It's just slashing front 3. It's just like, you know, he's just cruised it.
The one thing that stood out to me, he had this backside 720 tail grab. I think it was like somewhere in Tahoe, like a spot, maybe it was like at Mount Rose or something, was like a Cornice Gap thing, and it was just like, it was like the best backside 720 to ever go down. I felt like in the history of snowboarding, I remember it was just like so good, and tail grab, and I don't know, I was pretty hyped on that.
I mean, Salasnek for a while was just crushing everyone, I think, out there on like a overall just riding, and he was throwing tail grab 7s and 9s, and I don't even know, I know 7s, I think 9s too, and just crazy stuff, and like super smooth style. You know, I've always looked up to him and always thought he was just one of the best, for sure. Timeless.